Communication is the reason why we can express ourselves to other people. And also, communication is the reason or the way why people are connected to each other and having a good and better relationship. When the pandemic started, a lot of things was changed and still changing because of it. And one example is the way is our way on how to communicate to other people. The effects of pandemic caused to the world to change a lot of things. And one thing that was changed in every people's life is the way how they communicate to each and other. Example is that the communication between the family, education, in our friends, uh, in the business, and etc. Before the pandemic, our communication was very smoothly and was very open. Uh, we communicate to other people without wearing masks, without wearing face shield. We talk to them face to face, having without the social distancing. But when the pandemic started, all of the things were vanished. We need to use mask, face shield, social distancing, or the 6 meter space for us to be safety when we talk to them. Pandemic was cause or was a big barriers now in our communication because it limits the communication between other people. One thing that the pandemic affected in terms of communication is in in the small unit in our society, which is the family. Because of the pandemic, social media was very useful nowadays, especially in the families. They spending their times more in using social medias or using gadgets. Like in example, nowadays the TikTok, the trending app, it became more their entertainment to less or to reduce the stress that they are facing at these trying times. However, there are a lot of people that became more addictive on this tool, on this type of internet tools, wherein instead of creating a new memories, spending time with their families in their home, they spend their times in front of the camera, in front of their gadgets. That became hindrance for them to have a good and better communication. And since the social medias or other internet tools became useful at this pandemic times, some companies and businesses became more creative and innovative to have a wide and better connection with their customer, suppliers, and distribution to their products. Some of them became more successful because of being an online seller, because through social media they can easily communicate to their customers, and because of that, or most of the online sellers are those who became jobless at the quarantine or at the pandemic times lockdown. The effects of pandemic is not just about between the families, society, companies, businesses, countries, economy, but also in our education. Because at this pandemic times, to have the teacher a better communication and continue teaching their student, they use modules and online teaching. It became more hardly for every teachers teaching their student with the use of a paper without monitoring them if there's really studying or if they really learn from those piece of paper or what we call the modules. Some teacher also having a hard time to communicate to their student in the use of virtual classes because of some barrier like the internet connection. And sad to say, many students stop their studies. And those who continue their studies still having a hard time to communicate to their teachers because they don't have any access on gadget or in internet connection rather. That became also a big barrier for the communication between student and teachers. The effects of pandemic was really has a big impact in our world because one thing that it really affects is our communication. It changed the way how we communicate. Instead of talking, spending time in face to face, now we are use gadgets to see each other face. Now we can kiss, hug our loved one because of it. And there are a lot of protocols was implemented because of this pandemic. And for me, I hope someday or at least next year that we can now have a face-to-face in our education because it's really hard that it's really hard to have a communication between the student and teacher without having a face-to-face.